I began my life in journalism at Radio New Zealand. So I was a cadet journalist for a year down in Taupo at Radio Lakeland. I was really happy there but wanted to get back to Auckland, so got a job at a newspaper, worked as a sub-editor, and while I was working there, a job as a sub-editor came up with Eyewitness News, and I had no idea what that meant in television terms. I had only just come to grips with being a sub-editor in the print medium, and what the job was to prepare a 5-minute bulletin on top of this current affairs program. So I joined up as a 26-year-old, and I remember thinking, I know nothing about what I'm about to do. And the two blokes who hired me at the time, they said to me, you've got to understand, if you've got any interest in being on television, this is not the job for you. And I said, don't get me wrong here, I never, ever, ever want to be on screen. I absolutely want to be a producer behind the camera. I had a few short months as a reporter on regional news down in Wellington, and then I landed a job at Fair Go. Kerry Woodham and Philip Alpers were on the program at the time, and Kevin Milne, of course. And it was great fun. I was chasing people around the country, met my husband-to-be. He was working in Auckland, so I had to leave Wellington and came back and started working as a producer again on the home show. The producers of Crimewatch, which was a monthly show with Ian Johnston, got in touch and they said, look, you know, we'd love to bring you back down to Wellington once a month and help present Crimewatch with Ian. And I consider that one of my luckiest experiences in broadcasting, because Michael Scott-Smith, who was producing the program, ex-BBC, incredibly experienced producer, Ian Johnston, one of the great broadcasters to have to get the opportunity to work with. And Ian taught me an awful lot. I was a very young, nervous presenter. He was just so generous, highly intelligent, always giving more to the viewer when he was hosting any show. And I think he taught me that the importance of keeping the viewer centremost when you're doing anything for television, whether you're producing it or whether you're performing as a presenter, host, anchor. That was a very difficult program to bring to air. It was injuncted and it wasn't broadcast until something like 6 or 7 months after we first produced it. Because of the nature of the program, content, there were very few people we could seek interviews with. It was also a business story, and you know, it was a really hard story to tell on air. At that time, television production was reasonably rudimentary. There wasn't much in terms of animated graphics, but one of our great triumphs, if you like, was to get our bouncing money bags happening in our graphic sequences, to try to explain to the audience about the movement of money, because that was a central point of that particular story, how the money got shifted around and whether it should have been shifted around in the way that it was. It was pretty traumatic, to be honest, because we'd run a reasonably big advertising campaign saying that I was starting with this particular John, but I ended up with another one. Ultimately, though, I think it was a very lucky stroke of fate that I ended up working with John Campbell. We were both very similar in age. We had quite similar news sensibilities. We very much came from a working journalist background, and I think those aspects of our past, if you like, put us. Meant the chemistry between us was always going to be pretty good. We had similar backgrounds. I had met John probably twice before. We sat down to read the news together. We had one really brief rehearsal on the Sunday, and then we were reading the news together on the the Monday. I still remember everybody was actually still building the set around us when we were sort of rehearsing on the Monday. And but when I look back and think about that first bulletin, I've completely blanked it out of my head because it was so nerve-wracking in many ways. We came up with a format for a long-form interview show, and we really enjoyed that particular series, Home Truths. We put out two short series of it, and it was an opportunity for John to interview a number of prominent New Zealanders and international personalities who were visiting New Zealand at a given time. What I wanted to do as a producer with that show was to push the boundaries a little bit in terms of how to use vision to work off and include into the interview. And yeah, we did some really fun things on that particular show. It was a really big ask for us to do while we were still newsreading. And it was a very quirky look at New Zealand. It wasn't a commercial success, but I was very proud of a lot of things that we did in the program, and in many ways I'd love to see it again now. Because each part was almost self-contained within the show, it gave the people an opportunity to bail out, and I think that if I was formatting it again, I'd do it differently. We felt really proud to be involved and to be portrayed as being significant in the popular culture, and I loved my little cartoon self. In fact, I still have my little cartoon self from Brotown because I thought finally I was given a cleavage on television, and that was quite fun. Going back to a 7 o'clock show, because I had worked for a number of years on the home show, I knew how exhausting it was going to be, and it's a very, very tough slot, the 7 o'clock slot on free-to-air television in New Zealand. We've had Shortland Street sitting there for a number of years. By the time I'd been on the show producing for 5 years, I was starting to miss my family, basically. It pretty much was as simple as that, because when you're producing a show like Campbell Live or Close Up, it tends to be a 10-11 hour day, 5 days a week, and you're never really off. You're always watching the news agenda on the weekends. So I got to a point I thought, you know, am I thinking now is the chance to leave television altogether and try something else, or is there anywhere else to go in television? And at that stage a job came up as head of programming at Maori Television, and a broadcaster I'd never considered because I'm not a te reo speaker, but when I came and met people here, I thought it seemed like a fantastic challenge and an opportunity to learn a new area of television, general programming as opposed to news and current affairs, which was my natural home. I've now had a little shift in terms of my role here at Maori Television. I'm now General Manager Production. It's likely that we'll see more production occurring here, obviously because it's not possible for Maori Television to buy Maori programming elsewhere. We are quite we produce more programming than most broadcasters. When I think about the future for Maori Television, I look at our two channels. One is Maori Television and the Te Reo channel. I see us expanding genre on both channels. I see that through both the kinds of programs that we might concentrate on making, be they comedy, be they drama. I think moving towards Māori drama is probably one of the great holy grails that many people have sought over the years, and that Māori Television will pursue vigorously in the years to come. I'd like to see more New Zealanders sample what we have on Māori TV, because we're not straitjacketed like the other broadcasters. We have a wider brief in terms of the kind of programming that we can pursue, and most importantly, we're telling New Zealand stories. Māori Television being accepted as a New Zealand broadcaster for everyone.